Thank you so much, Jesse, and hello, everyone. It's a thrill for me to moderate this masterclass lightning round on wellness trends because it's such a popular topic, and we have an amazing group of trends forecasters with us to enlighten us as to what they are seeing. Now, before we get to them, I just want to take a moment to introduce our VP for Marketing and Communications, Heidi Moon, to tell us all about a special offer. Heidi?
Hi, everybody. We wanted to give everyone exclusively in this group a special exclusive offer of $20 off the Future of Wellness 2024 Global Trends Report. If you haven't gotten your copy yet, this is an offer that's only good until October 31st. And while this conversation is going to be dynamic and engaging and full of information, this 130-page report outlines 10 trends in great depth, featuring hundreds of the people and the actual companies and technologies shaping the future of wellness. So we're happy to offer that exclusively to this group. Thank you for registering.
Thank you, Heidi. Okay, on to the lightning round. I'm going to call on our global trend spotters to present for 2 minutes each. I have my stopwatch. Those presenting may share their screen with a stat or a photo. Please put your comments in the chat along with your questions and a trend you're seeing. When you receive the follow-up email with the recording of this webinar, you also receive a copy of the chat. We find this incredibly helpful, so please do contribute to that. We will get to some questions later, but right now, let's hear from these guests. First up, to set the stage for the future of wellness, the trends maven herself, the one and only Beth McGroarty, VP for Research and Forecasting at the Global Wellness Summit. Beth, what are you seeing for wellness in 2025? Your 2 minutes start now. Make sure you're unmuted.
I had many, but I'll just do one with the time issues. I just think it's so important to talk about how there's a bypassing of traditional medicine going on. And the speed at which medicine is moving beyond the hospital is really quite extraordinary. You could say there's a new primary care emerging, and it's all centered on prevention. Medical wellness longevity clinics and resorts are, of course, the obsession and the mega trend here. This new pricey preventative healthcare usually involves a battery of advanced diagnostic testing to identify issues before they become a problem, typically along with a slew of, biohacking treatments. So many of these are opening, from the elite club Seren in London with diagnostic testing and everything wellness, to the new Tony Robbins-backed medical longevity hospitality brand, The Estate. And who would have thought that gyms would have become healthcare hubs where you can get blood workups along with your workouts, whether it's St. Haven in Australia or at Equinox. Doctors are leaving traditional medicine and setting up medical wellness centers, I'm sure exhausted by the eternal lack of focus on prevention and also seeing profits. Celebrity integrative doctors and scientists are the brand faces behind new longevity programs, from Dr. Mark Hyman for Six Senses' new longevity clinic Rose Bar, or Andrew Huberman and David Sinclair behind Seren. The bypassing or disintermediation of medicine is going to take many forms. Primary care player forward is putting care pods, which are kiosks, in places like malls and offices that use AI to screen for dozens of health conditions, bringing preventative health care to the people. With wearables now tracking simply mountains of health data, when you add AI into the mix, more will deliver health and medical coaching right on your arm. Anna Berstrom told me we'll see portals at spas and wellness centers where you just walk in, get scanned, walk out, and get results. The longevity market is mostly a concierge medical wellness business model that lives outside traditional medicine and now under the wellness umbrella. That model will keep expanding beyond longevity, whether it's menopause treatment or male fertility. So the promise of medicine delivered in new places and so very differently to bring prevention to more people. But there are issues that arise. The uber expensive longevity clinics and gyms are almost exclusively aimed at the 1%. You know there's saturation emerging in such a narrow space. And who will police and regulate all these alt preventative healthcare businesses who are, obviously delivering medicine, but also in tandem with more experimental, less evidence-based approaches?
Thank you, Beth. Thank you so much. Always insightful, and I'm sure we'll come back to you for a little bit more commentary later. Next up, Anna Bjurström, wellness pioneer at Six Senses. Anna is based in Sweden and is renowned for the innovative products, services, and experiences she brings to her work around the world. There is cutting edge, bleeding edge, and then there is the Anna edge. We always love hearing what Anna thinks about future trends. Anna, your 2 minutes start now.
Thank you, Nancy. Nice one. Anna Edge. So the Anna Edge for today is quite unexpected. It's going to be about pleasure health. And you might think that that is sexual health. Yes, that's a part of it. But it's about how we in the wellness industry need to think about well-being and wellness differently, because it's often looked upon as a chore you have to do. You have to go through pain. You have to sacrifice something. And what we're seeing in today's world is that people are not willing to do that. So habits have to be formed, which are very difficult. So when we talk about pleasure health, that could include food, for example, because food is one of the most pleasurable things we have. Of course, things like meditation, you have today meditation that people feel is fairly hard. And that's why there's been a huge rise of things like orgasmic meditation or sensual meditation, which makes meditation a bit more pleasurable. It's not only sexual health, because it is also about finding pleasures of moving, well-being, social connections, and how that affects our dopamine, our serotonin, and our cortisol level going down, how we can, through pleasure, actually regulate our nervous system. So this is something that I believe is going to be a very big topic, because it's a new way of looking at wellness. And if you happen to come to the Global Wellness Summit, I'm going to talk a lot more in detail about it and what it entails and the science behind it, because there is quite a lot of science behind it. And so you better come to Scotland. But other than that, I think that we're going to see that we change on how do we work, because people and especially youth are dopamine addicted, as we all know. And there's ways on using that to our favor instead of our disadvantage. So pleasure health is something that I see that's coming, and it's about having pleasurable experience when it comes to health and well-being, and how that also can transform how we sell and how we work with wellness and well-being.
Anna, thank you so much. So far we've got prevention and pleasure. These both sound incredible. And now let's go to the UK and Olivia Houghton, Deputy Creative Foresight Editor, Future Laboratory and LSN Global. Olivia and her team produce incredible trends. We have a robust partnership with the Future Laboratory, as we are aligned on the need for evidence and science when it comes to wellness trends. And I can't wait to hear what Olivia is seeing from her unique vantage point. Olivia, your 2 minutes start now.
Well, it nearly didn't start at all because I was running out of battery until someone saved me. So we've recently hosted our trend briefing, and one of the most prominent things that we discussed there was similar to kind of what Beth was discussing, but more looking at the intertwining of the human and the machine. And this is predominantly happening in the West, and is something we're kind of defining as synterventional living. So it's really looking at the fusion of humans and technology, where we're seeing advances in biohacking, wearables, AI, all driving this future or of kind of augmented humanity, which might seem a little sci-fi, but I think we're getting there, and it's already happening. We've seen so many things. So the rise of obviously the LP1 drugs in the medical, and more recently the lifestyle landscape, precision wearables, smartwatches, continuous glucose monitors, mood boosting, brain altering products like nootropics. So many things that are already have demonstrated to us the start of this shift, but that very much was only the start. And obviously we'll continue to see these technologies kind of more do the work for us, really. So we're already seeing kind of signals to this with Neuralink. Without bringing my own personal views on Elon Musk into this, he could be on the right track there. Also more like kind of less invasive products. So Ortec by Orbi, which is a functional simulation device that uses AI to process brain signals into electrical waves and then stimulate neurotissue. So this is really helping patients with Parkinson's disease, for example, really enhance their movement and pain moderation. But then, quite interestingly, in the commercial landscape, we've got brands like Arterex and Skip, and I think they're called, I'm presuming it's pronounced like this, they're Mojo trousers, which are designed with integrated robotics, wearable robotics that provide 40% boost to leg muscle and knee support, which is just incredible in a pair of trousers. And like I said, it's certainly part of that longevity conversation, but really looking at areas where we have opportunity to grow and develop there. So muscle cognition. The conversation around neuro wellness is huge and fascinating. But I would say that any conversation around longevity, in order to progress that, we will need to look at the kind of the causes or what could be potentially stumping longevity. And I think there will be a lot of attention paid to the food and beverage industry over the next kind of 50 years. So if I were in the food and beverage industry, I would be looking at what the next 10, 20, 50 years looks like, because I think there'll be some serious changes on a systemic and on an individual level. And even like Anna said, if people have to sort of replace those dopamine hits with something, it could be sex. So might be worth looking at that market too.
Okay, Olivia, thank you so much. Olivia will also be with us in Scotland in a conversation about trends with Beth. So that's going to be very exciting. Okay, keeping with our global footprint, we're going to travel now to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and hear from our trend spotting colleague, Lindsay Madden-Nadeau, Senior Director, Wellness Strategy and Development and Portfolio Strategy Development at the Red Sea Global. Lindsay is going to share a trend or two that she is seeing in her very busy world. Lindsay, your 2 minutes. Begin now.
Hi, Nancy. Thanks. And I'm actually just going to share my screen because I'm a fairly visual person and I like to talk through things. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It's great to be here. I've just put together a little mood board here, which is going to help me talk through some of the trends that we're seeing in health, wellness, and sports within the GCC. And I think what's important to note is that a lot of these trends are driven by government initiatives that are putting these in place in order to drive a greater awareness to the people and to create that active lifestyles. And what we're seeing here in Saudi Arabia is with the Vision 2030 plan. In parallel with that, they've launched something called the Quality of Life program, which is to introduce to youth within the region and to get them interested in sports and active lifestyles and health and well-being. So within that sphere, we'll start on the top right. We've got the picture of Cristiano Ronaldo. So we start to see that a lot of government entities or country strategies are using ambassadorship within sports in order to draw that awareness in the kingdom. We also have female sport empowerment.
Lindsay, excuse me, I don't think we're seeing your screen.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And we're going to take questions later, so.
You're right, hold on.
Yeah, now it's starting. Okay, we got it.
Sorry about that, everyone.
No worries.
So we've got women's empowerment in sports. So we're starting to see a lot more recognition and encouragement of women within the GCC and specifically within the kingdom. Again, just bringing that awareness forward. We also have youth wellness, which is fundamentally important. We're starting to also see things like UFC boxing or fighting, sorry. So they're using sport as an opportunity to bring awareness to active health and lifestyle. There's also a lot of festivals. There's things like Dubai Active. So they have the Dubai Fitness Challenge, which has their 30-day fitness challenge, which is always very successful. There's Alula in Saudi Arabia, which has launched their wellness festival. And of course, the next thing I want to talk about is the emphasis of wellness within the kingdom. And we have Amala, which is pegged to be the most comprehensive health and wellness destination in Saudi Arabia, but also within the GCC and probably within the world, where we're welcoming some of the top health and wellness brands. We're seeing group fitness is starting to pick up here. Women's only fitness is still becoming or is still trending as something that's very important here. When we think about wellness, tourism, and travel, we're thinking about sustainability. Red Sea Global is actually leading a sustainable regenerative development with the Amala program. So it's 100% off grid. So sustainability is really key. And in parallel with that, in the GCC, we're also starting to see a lot of wellness residential. So Shaw is showcasing one of their new resorts here in Abu Dhabi, which is part wellness resort and then part wellness residential, which is very purpose-built. So that is my quick update. Hopefully I stayed within your 2 minutes, Nancy.
Oh, you know, I'm a little fuzzy with the 2 minutes. It's also interesting, everybody. And clearly there's a tremendous amount going around in the region. So thank you, Lindsay, for sharing that and sharing all of those images as well. I really appreciate it. Okay. Back to the US, to another wonderful partner of ours, Amy Eisinger, head of content for Well and Good. Well and Good has produced wonderful trends for years, and their huge audience of consumers often skews younger. So perhaps that will be reflected in Amy's wellness trend ideas for 2025. Amy, your 2 minutes or so. Start now.
I appreciate the grace period. I'll start there. So I want to sort of jump on the longevity trend. It's something that we absolutely see as not going anywhere. And I think that that actually informs the other trends that I'm going to be talking about. So the first one that I'll talk about is what we're calling beauty for all ages. This is beauty and the pursuit of skincare, makeup, yes, all beauty treatments, both, you know, the kind that can be done by dermatologists, the kinds that are done by estheticians, beauty that meets people where they are in their life stages. So beauty that is designed to meet you in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s, in your 50s, and beyond. That doesn't mean that we're saying goodbye to anti-aging treatments, but it does mean that people are looking for beauty treatments that recognize that aging can be a beautiful process in and of itself. We know that consumers have been jaded by the status quo and that they are craving products and experiences that inspire, excite, and provide rich emotional micro moments, to boost their physical and mental well-being. Kind of going hand in hand with this, we think about skin health and skin longevity. This remains a top priority for consumers and for our readers, for example, as well. We think that, you know, as they look to age well on the inside, they also want that to be reflected on the outside. The other thing that I'll talk about quickly is biophilia and the outdoor economy. So we see the outdoor economy as being set to thrive as young people, especially, increasingly turn to nature for respite amid rising living costs and stress. This is a sector that offers growth opportunities as consumers seek the joy of disconnecting during a time of polycrises. We're talking budget-friendly nature outdoor pursuits, but also the luxury as well. Hiking, camping, short vacations. We see this as an extension of the van life trend, right, that has been going on for, you know, over a decade now, as well as the globalization interest in forest bathing. And then more recently, what we're calling glow birding, which is the Gen Z pursuit of snowbirding. So going south for the winter, getting out of the doldrums of New York City in the winter, and really embracing more beautiful outdoor living.
Did you say glow birding?
Yeah, that's kind of what we've been calling
That's-
it. So it's snowbirding, but it's gotten a glow up. So it's glow birding.
Love that. And Amy, can you share just the demographics for Well and Good? Can you just give us a little bit of a sense of your audience generally?
Yeah, sure. So we are, I mean, I sometimes like to say that we have a sociographic rather more than we have like a demographic or a psychographic rather more than we have a demographic. So we're here for anyone who is, pursuing a wellness journey, and we're here to meet them wherever they might be on their wellness journey. So, on TikTok and Instagram, we tend to skew a little bit younger. We're in the sort of, the 18 to 34, largely female demographic. But we also have a newsletter and a website audience that tends to skew a little bit older. So women who are in their 40s and their 50s. We have a lot of moms, and we have a lot of people who are starting to be, I would say, perimenopause curious. So they might not be right at that stage in their life, but they're sort of done having children and they're thinking about that next stage.
Okay, wonderful. That's a different glow. I should have asked Olivia about your demographics at LSN Global just for a minute, because I think you really talk to business a lot.
Yes, we're business to business, and it's all kind of our research centers around consumer foresight. We do a lot of kind of strategically focused work. So a lot of our writing is kind of helping businesses make better decisions about what they do, essentially. And we're kind of filtering down everything that's happening in the world for them.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, I was gonna say let's travel back to the UK for Jane Kitchen, but she happens to be in upstate New York today. So Jane Kitchen is editor-at-large for Spa Business. She's also working very closely with Beth and our team at the summit on the 2025 Trends Report, which will be released January 28th at our press event in New York. Jane's a consummate wellness enthusiast, writer, editor, and trend spotter. Jane, your 2 minutes starts now.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nancy, and hello, everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about saunas, which is a little bit more specific than what a lot of the other trend spotters have been talking about. But I really and obviously a sauna is not a new trend, but I really feel like they're having a moment right now. And there's just a lot going on with different ways that people are experiencing saunas. So I'm going to try and share my screen as well to just show you a few visual. Maybe I won't. Sorry, I've got to give permission.
Oh, I think it's all.
You should have permission to share.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's for my own settings. Sorry, I have a new
Oh,
laptop.
it's because
Okay, so maybe I
definitely turned
won't.
it
It's
on.
fine.
Maybe you can share the images and we can share them in the follow-up email, Jane.
That's absolutely fine. Yes. So I am American, as you can tell, but I'm based in the UK, and there's some interesting things going on there with saunas. So we're about to get our first floating sauna in Liverpool, which I had a beautiful image of a rendering, but it's kind of based off a trend that's been going on for quite a while in places like Oslo, where you have these very public areas. Go to the waterfront, and there are these floating saunas where you can go for quite cheaply, experience this sauna, and then, maybe jump in the water afterwards. And Liverpool in the UK is getting its first one, and this is a company called Wild Sauna, and there's plans for them to expand nationwide. So it's a very youthful, fun, kind of entertainment-driven sauna experience, with big windows and a kind of in and out. Maybe you have some drinks, maybe there's music. Again, Oslo has tons of these places all over, and they tend to be built quite inexpensively. They tend to be very accessible for people. So it's kind of a coming together of several trends, this social wellness trend, this accessible wellness trend. And then there's another bit that I think is quite interesting that will be coming up, that brings in that whole immersive wellness trend that I know Ari Peralta has been writing about for Global Wellness Summit trends for a couple of years now, different ways that will be changing. So there's some really interesting things that I think are coming up in terms of bringing that technology into a place like a sauna, so that you have, instead of having a kind of what used to be a very typical, dark wooden box. I know we've been seeing for a long time these kind of panoramic saunas with windows where you can look out, and it's a whole different experience. But now we're seeing this technology coming in. Brian Paris has a new company called, I think it's Wellscape, where you can have a whole kind of screen that moves and you can feel like you're on the beach or in the mountains, and it becomes a whole different experiential thing. And then I think just adding to that is this sense in which, again, the Aufguss, which is not a new trend, but I just feel like it is expanding in its reach. And there are a lot more places like hotels that are training saunameisters to come in and give these kind of performances with music and scent and just bringing in lots of different things. So I guess just what I would say is that you know, if you have a hotel or a spa and your sauna is just a traditional boring box, like think about maybe how it cannot be that as we move forward.
Jane, take 30 seconds and describe a sauna Aufguss performance for those who wouldn't know.
So a sauna Aufguss, and it can depend, but it's usually the saunameister comes in and they have like maybe an ice ball that they put on the coals that is infused with essential oils, so different scents, and then the saunameister.
And this is a group activity.
The group activity, you go in, it's like 10, maybe 15 minutes, but probably more like 10. You go in at a certain time, maybe there's a theme, maybe there's music, and then the saunameister kind of whips this towel around in a kind of choreographed dance that also does double duty of just getting different warm air up to you in these waves of, I mean, it's quite invigorating, really. And it does. I just took a friend to one in the UK. Again, like UK is not normally where you would find this, but we're starting to see this more and more. And she was sort of going in saying, I don't really like saunas, I don't like being hot, but she loved it. So it's very accessible. You have a short time limit, and you're in and out, and then there might be music as well. So
amazing. And they use a towel, not the one that's wrapped around them that they whip off and start doing this, but an extra towel.
An extra towel, yeah. And but it's like, and they do, you know, amazing.
It could touch Anna's pleasure health situation, depending
Yes.
on the towels, but okay. Jane, thank you so much. And thanks for ducking out of a conference. You're at a conference and we appreciate you being with us.
Oh, thank you.
Now we get to hear from Susie Ellis, Chair and CEO of both the Global Wellness Summit and Global Wellness Institute. Susie started spotting wellness trends more than 2 decades ago and has remained on the forefront of the industry by understanding at a very deep level the issues and ideas that would propel wellness forward. Susie has invested time, resources, and personal agency on ensuring the wellness industry was informed by research and evidence. And somewhere in her closet in Miami, she must have a crystal ball, because Susie's track record predicting trends is nearly flawless. Susie, your 2 minutes or so start now.
Thank you, Nancy. And I just want to say I am loving hearing from everyone. And I just want to give credit to Nancy for this idea of bringing together different trend spotters and having a webinar like this. I think we've never done it before. I don't know if anyone's ever done it. So I think this is a great idea. So thank you, Nancy. So what I'm going to do, and this is what I do, is I just keep a list all year long of things that I'm seeing that I'm thinking, oh, I wonder if that, might be something to watch. So I have 7 things I'm just going to list that I am watching. And then, if anyone wants more information about it, that would be fine. Last year in our trends book, I did a thing at the end called Under the Radar. And one of them that was under the radar that we mentioned was the 6th blue zone, which was Singapore. And I think that has legs, and I'm hoping that it will. The idea that now we can have new blue zones, places, countries, cities, mostly cities, I would say, that are really trying to create a environment where people can live healthy lives easily. I mean, I'd love to see that everywhere. And Singapore is a good example. So that's one. Jane was mentioning the wild sauna in the UK, and also we know wild swimming is a trend. And the gal that we saw, Nancy, when we were there, talked about seaweed barrel soaks that I'd never heard of before. but apparently they're using all that seaweed that they have and they're putting it in barrels and people are sitting in the barrels. And I have no idea how that would feel, but that sounded interesting. I think, and this is to Lindsay's, I think A beauty is something we might be hearing more about. And we've heard of K beauty, Korean beauty, J beauty, Japan beauty, but A beauty is Arab beauty. And there's so much going on in the Middle East, as we know. So I think the Arab beauty is going to be interesting. And one thing in particular that they do that I've never heard of before, but I thought, isn't that interesting? It's called fragrance labeling, fragrance layering. So they do not just one fragrance, but a variety of fragrance. And I thought, well, that would be something interesting to learn about. Another trend that I think is interesting, and athletes focused beauty. So not just, age-wise and so on, but beauty for athletes, or having an emphasis on the kind of beauty that athletes care about. And it is interesting when I watch the Olympics, how many of the athletes are wearing makeup, and they do care a lot about how they look and what they're wearing. So I think that's interesting. And then transdermal patches, I find interesting. I know that is in the medical arena where you can now have patches that, add estrogen or different kinds of things, hormones to your body, but also with vitamins. So I think that would be interesting. And lastly, I will just mention that I think that India is something to watch because, China, is starting to travel again, but India is now the largest country. There are more people traveling. They are not so, they are into more and more travel. So I think the India consumer is interesting, and therefore what will happen is, what are they interested in? So I think India is something to watch. That's it.
Fantastic, Susie. And I'm going to give you the opportunity before we open it up to questions. If there's a question you might have for one of our special trend spotting guests, anything you want to ask them before we open it up?
And matter of fact, I do. I want to ask Anna Bergstrom what orgasmic meditation is.
Don't we all?
There is a couple of apps. Glow Life, I think, is one where you basically meditate, but then they take you on a visual journey that could be sensual. And apparently, I actually, I thought it was really fun when I tried it, but I won't tell you what happened because that would be too pleasurable. No, I'm just joking. But
I was going to say, because
anyway,
this is a G-rated program, so yes.
No, but it's very interesting because it makes meditation, you are very focused and you're having a sensual as well as an interesting experience. And I meditate every day. So for me, it felt like almost I was being untruthful or adultery towards, or whatever you call it, against meditation. But I have to say it was really interesting, and it is skyrocketing the downloads of apps for this because we get so much intel every day. So it gives you a break because it's too hard to meditate. So what if you can meditate a bit more sensually? So there's several apps, and they're calling orgasmic apps, sensual apps, sex meditation apps that are really skyrocketing right now.
Incredible. And Anna will be talking about that at the summit. Now I'm thinking you're going to have to give everybody an experience at the summit, Anna, but
yeah, I'm not sure that would be so pleasurable.
You think about that. But okay,
you know what's a really good cultural reference to something that's similar to that is very basic, but has anyone seen Grey's Anatomy? And there's a doctor on there called Karina, and she uses pleasure health to help women through birth. Right. So we'll start to see that come into application in the real world potentially.
Okay, that also means you're a season behind, or you're binging it or something.
Oh, yes, it's a very old one.
Okay, that's not the new. Okay, excellent. Okay, we're going to open it up to a few questions from all of you. Please raise your virtual hand if you have a question for one of our trend spotters. This is, let me be really clear, not a time to tell us all about you. and what you do or your predictions. This is a time for you to spend no more than 30 seconds. Tell us your name and the question you have for whom, and that's it. And I'm going to ask that the answers be limited to a minute, so we can try to get to a bunch of people before we run out of time. So who would like to go first? Anybody have a question for one of our experts? Please raise your virtual hand and let us know. And if not, I'm going to ask one of our trend spotters to ask a question of another trend spotter like Susie just did. Okay, Leslie, please unmute and ask your question.
Hi, I'm Leslie Sheffield, and I'm curious as to how much mental health trends are we seeing, and are these trends that you all referred to taking the place of mental health?
Who would like to answer that?
I can.
Okay.
I think, and just think about that the first 30 minutes that we wake up in the morning, if we look at our phone for those 30 minutes, we get as much information that we did in a full week 50 years ago, and our brains have not changed. So the worst thing you can do for mental health actually and brain performance is to look at your phone in the morning. We already know that, but now you have some science behind it. And I think what we're seeing when it comes to mental health is enormous amount of apps. There's Apollo Neuro, who can give electrical stimulation to help mental health. But what we're seeing is somatic experience and nervous system regulation and vagus nerve stimulation through a number of easy practices like humming, or touching yourself, but not that way, but just touching your hands or something calms your nervous system. So simple things that you can do, having breaks, etc. So I think mental health is really on the rise, and what we're seeing is more practical solutions on an everyday basis that you can do to calm your nervous system. But we're also seeing like cryotherapy has been proven.
Okay, we're going to
very
limit
good.
the answers.
That was
Okay.
it.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much. And I just want to say mental health is a huge ongoing issue and something we talk about and write about a lot. We have a mental wellness policy toolkit we released. It is a huge topic in the work that I think we all do. So please know there are resources for all of that we can share in our follow-up. Radhika, if you would unmute and take your 30 seconds and ask your question.
Hi, good evening. My name is Radhika. I'd like to understand from you ladies if you have any forecast for Ayurveda and Ayurvedic wellness.
Okay, Ayurveda and Ayurvedic wellness. Who would like to address that?
I don't want to go again, but I can. I'll be quiet after this, but obviously we have successes. We have Vana, which is an Ayurvedic destination spa. We see an increase of Ayurveda, but also Chinese medicine. Ayurveda is difficult to implement in the Western world, so people have to go to Ayurvedic facilities, I would say, in order to get the benefit of the full benefit of Ayurveda. But it's definitely something that is increasing. And my personal choice, if I ever get chronically ill, is first stop will be an Ayurvedic location, and I see many more doing that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just add, with the emphasis on India, I think that there is going to be more education and so on about that. But in some ways, I think Ayurveda had its moment already a bit. It's not brand new to our wellness and spa landscape. And like Anna said, certainly Shirodara and different things are used in different spas. And I think that will continue. But it'll be interesting because I wonder if the people from India who are traveling, I'm not sure they're going to be looking for Ayurveda. I think they're going to be looking for something else because they know Ayurveda in their home area. And, it's more of a traditional kind of experience. So I'm not sure about, a huge explosion because of Indian travel, but we'll see.
That's an interesting observation. Thank you for that.
Thank you for
That's so
adding.
welcome, Susie. Hi, Susie. Hi, this
Hello.
is Hari. Hi,
Oh,
this is
please raise
from
your
Lucky
hand if you have,
Wellness.
please raise your hand if you have a question. So we can call on you. Okay. Beth, I'd like you to maybe comment on what you're hearing from your colleagues, trend spotting.
In general.
Sure, whatever you're thinking, listening to all these wonderful people. share
For
these thoughts.
questions, to give a question to somebody.
Whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to say. I thought it was really interesting that there's been a couple people talking about women in sports. I mean, I think that one of the people don't talk about enough is that you're sort of seeing a shift from, lonely, sort of narcissistic, do it to look good fitness to very empowering social sports for women. You see here in the United States, new sports launching, women's or flag football craze and leagues are starting. We have to say pickleball, padel, all this, but I just think, it's really exciting. There's new leagues, new stars. I mean, brands, instead of hiring, thin models or hiring female athletes as the faces of their brands and beauty and in fitness and athletic wear and everything. Women's sports are seeing record viewership. There's women's sports bars. Anyway, I just think that shift from lonely, look good fitness to getting women into sports is really exciting. A couple people talked about that.
That's great. Yeah, okay, wonderful. Valentina Sarita had a question, but is on a phone, so doesn't have the opportunity to raise a virtual hand. Valentina, would you like to ask a question?
Yes, hi everyone, this is Valentina. I would like to know if any of you think there will be a trend in the future about wellness and health related to animals. Now, animals have, part of nature. There's a huge trend on biophilia, but they're always more used when it comes to illnesses and to help people with their mental health and autism and so on.
Okay.
And I've been seeing here in the Middle East more healing with horses, and so that's the question.
Okay,
Do you
the
think
question
this will
is
be
animal.
rising?
Okay, thank you, Valentina. The question is animals and wellness and place in that. Okay, thank you. Who would like to answer that?
I mean, I could say something. It's a different take on it.
1 minute to respond, Beth.
Oh yeah. Pet wellness is a huge market. That's one thing, and animal wellness. So it's just amazing. I just saw a story last week. I called it dognastics, but there's even preventative diagnostics and testing now for pets and animals to keep them healthy in all these different ways. But just the sort of healthy pet, the healthy animal market is just exploding. People care as much about their pets as they do their kids. So that's I mean, I know that's not exactly healing through animals, but
I might be able to add something on that.
Please do,
Kind of
Olivia.
related, I suppose. I think I put in the comments about this like reclamation of consciousness, and I think that we're seeing that through things like primal therapy. So even going back to our ancestors. So if there's connections from our ancestors through to certain animals, that could also be potentially an area of opportunity there to connect with different animals and sort of build on this reclamation of consciousness.
Thank you. Lindsay, were you going to comment on that, or you had another question?
Yeah, I was actually just going to comment and say, one of the leaders on the market right now, we're seeing within the
Your volume is a little low. If you could boost it on your end.
The equine therapy is Miraval, and I had the opportunity earlier this year to visit them in Arizona. We'll also be welcoming them to the Middle East in one of our developments here. And it's actually come up today about 2 or 3 times today in conversation, Valentina, about horse therapy and how could we look at different operators or creations where we're bringing that experience to the table. So I definitely think that in the Middle East is definitely something that we're starting to see that trend.
Thank you so much, Lindsay, for adding that. So clear, okay, so please mute yourself after your question. Okay, Natalie, please unmute and have your 30 seconds. Natalie, where did you go?
Natalie, you need to unmute. There you
Sorry. I'm sorry. Thank you. Sorry for that. Yeah, my question was about wellness more for expanding for the benefit community, thinking specifically more of wellness real estate. I remember from the talk in New York, there was talk about a need to expand it wellness beyond just the people using the facilities directly to the community. And I just wondered if anyone had any experience who were maybe speaking with businesses and investors and seeing if that is really actually something that is occurring or whether it's just would be a nice to think is occurring.
Thank you so much. So it's wellness real estate. Beth or Susie, do you want to address that from our point of view?
Well, I think, if you don't mind, wellness for all is something that we've talked about, and I'm glad our industry is talking more about. And what you said, Natalie, is very true, is like, you know, investors and so on, they're looking for a way to be able to make money with that model. In other words, you know, it's not going to be just philanthropic. The one area where I see this working is in the large thermal bathing, water park kinds of areas. Those termes that are now, you know, they welcome thousands of people a day and they're paying $30, you know, for the day and so on. It's more affordable and they very much tout wellness for all, which they are compared to going to somewhere else. And that makes a lot of money. So I think that's an area where there's sort of an introduction for a lot of people that wouldn't necessarily be able to go to a very high-end spa. And there's a lot of activity in that area, lots of people opening termes and, you know, Therma is doing that. And in New York, there's bathhouses and so on. So that is an area I think that has some promise to extend wellness for all.
Thank you, Susie. That is so true. And there will be World Springs. The person who's doing World Springs will be at the summit in Scotland talking about that very thing. Beth, did you want to add anything on the wellness community, accessibility to all kind of comment?
Well, on the profit side, I think, you know, obviously what the sort of model of residence plus community membership plus hotel is obviously bringing, you know, incredible things to people in cities everywhere. I mean, I just, you know, going back to Jane's point, I mean, the explosion of public pools, saunas, and stuff that's happening globally is unprecedented. I mean, there's lists we have of just the things that are coming that are stunning and mind-blowing and will change regular people's lives in cities in an incredible way, and especially in a hot world. So to me, that's one of the most tangible and exciting and democratic trends that I see globally is this, you know, reinventing the public pool and reinventing the public sauna.
I'm going to ask very quickly, each of you who are our trend spotters on the call, how you know when something is a trend. Jane, how do you know when it's not just something that interests you, but it's really a trend? What's the moment when you know that really fast?
I think there's just a level of excitement that you can feel, you know, when you start seeing similar things popping up all over the world in different ways, and you see this kind of level of excitement of lots of people being interested in it, not just yourself.
Amy, how about you?
I mean, I would say that I'm chronically online, and I'm always like, I'm combing, like TikTok, I'm combing, you know, Instagram. I'm looking to see what other young people are talking about and what they're interested in. I actually, sorry, not to totally derail everything really quickly, but I actually tend to prickle a little bit when people talk about, like, you know, mental health and we should all put down our phones, because I think that unfortunately we've reached the tipping point where our phones and being online is actually just a part of our lives, and so we have to learn how to work with it. But I definitely think that trends are being fueled by, you know, the younger generation. They always are, and then the rest of us sort of react.
Interesting. Beth, how do you know something's a trend?
I think I'm chronically online too, sadly, but you know, I think it's one thing to read constantly about what the media wants to hear, you know, or what they're obsessed with at the moment, like longevity at the moment. So I think to really, you know, to do a trend is to think about the shifts culturally, demographically, you know, financially, culturally, mindset, politically, that are unfolding that will inevitably make something an issue. You know, one of the things on my list was, you know, if we're going to live so long, and we are, how will work change? How do we work into our 90s? How do we work into our 80s? What does workplace wellness look like when you have, you know, have these long careers? What does work and skill look like? So, but that's just like an example of, you can see all the trends around you, or you can say this is going to become an issue no matter that nobody's covering it now.
Okay, Lindsay, how do you know when something is a trend?
I think one of the things for me to recognize a trend is some type of ambassadorship or collaboration behind the group. And I think that's always really interesting because you see new supplement brands, or you see, you know, as an example, the Estate was just launched, and all of a sudden you've got Tony Robbins, you've got really kind of big celebrity heads behind it. And all of a sudden people's heads start to turn and they start to see it more as a credible, like if Tony Robbins is credible, then the concept is probably credible. If Andrew Huberman is names on it, it's probably quite credible. If Dr. Hyman's on it, then it's probably quite credible. So I think using that that power of collaboration, ambassadorship, can sometimes help steer trends in the right direction.
Interesting. Okay, I think that probably is a double-edged sword a little bit, because some people feel that celebrities are just jumping on a bandwagon to make a ton of money because everybody's interested in what do they really know. But in the case of some of these people, I think they do know. Anna, I know you smirking a little on this. You have some
I saw the smirk.
with
She's got
Mark Hyman and
ambassadors. And
others.
Sixth Senses is a great example of a
Yeah.
company that uses ambassadorship to strengthen their wellness offer.
Right. So Anna, comment about that.
Well, the comment about that is that it's a dangerous game to go down, and you have to really look how ethical they are. And we have seen the likes of Huberman and Sinclair and Peter Attia this year get a lot of shame for various things. So I think it's a dangerous road, and you really have to partner with the ones that you feel are ethically correct and have as few affiliation with product brands as possible. When it comes to spotting trends, I think it's a lot about what makes common sense. Longevity, living healthier longer, of course, people will want that. Biohacking, shortcuts to get to your goal, we like that, we love that. Pleasure health, would we rather have pleasure than pain? Common sense. So I think it's that, and then you test it on groups and you see that the early adopters are on it. So I think it's a lot about common sense, is that does it have legs? And then you have a lot of trends that doesn't have legs because doesn't really make sense. It just sounds cool for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the trick. And Olivia, how do you know when something is a trend?
Like the others have said, a lot of it now is intuition, but tends to be kind of 3 to 5 really strong references. This could just be cultural commentary or kind of case studies within the last 6 months. And we're always looking to those early adopters and those kind of innovation capitals. So Korea for glass skin. Why are we not looking to Africa for hyperpigmentation? Things like that. We're just kind of watching those existing and new emerging kind of capitals of innovation as well. Singapore as well, like Susie referenced.
Susie, how do you know when something's a trend, other than your incredibly reliable gut, which we all rely on?
Well, one of the things I want to, I think back to is when we came out with the trend of forest bathing. I don't remember, Beth, you might know what year it was. It was a long time ago. And it was like nobody had heard of forest bathing. This 10 years ago or whatever. You know, now it was even mentioned today. But I spotted that because when I learned about forest bathing and realized there was a lot of science and research behind it, excuse me, that's when I realized not that it was already a trend, but that it should be a trend, that it is a very exciting, it makes sense. You're out in the forest and, but there's also research behind it. So I think that is, the essence of it. That's why the sixth, the sixth blue zone, is a trend. And then I would say, because I've been in the industry for so many decades, I do think that there is some value, and Beth shares some of that with me, although she's not as old as I am, that when you've been through 4 or even 5 decades of seeing how things have developed, I think there's a little bit of a sense that you kind of know what might have legs and what might not. And then I do think there's an obligation for us to also put forward the ones that are really good trends, like wellness for all.
Yeah.
Because we can make them a trend altogether, especially.
Right. I think we fuel them by the fact that all the work that we do for them. Mary Gostelow, what a pleasure to call on you. Take your 30 seconds and ask a question. You have to unmute, Mary. You have to unmute.
Okay, is that all right? Right.
Yes.
Nobody in the last few minutes has mentioned the importance of media. Surely media can get a trend going. And I am going to support getting the trend going of 25-minute facials. I had the most brilliant 25-minute facial at Pine Cliffs a couple of days ago. Now, I didn't have a mask, but I had cleanse and massage. I felt fabulous. From an operator's point of view, it's really labor saving. Therefore, it makes more money for the operator. And
so Mary, do you have a question for someone, or are you just offering that as a trend in the future?
I'm offering it as a trend for the future.
Okay, 25-minute facials. Let's all mark that down because Mary is someone who would know. So that's fantastic. Thank you for contributing that. Victor, unmute and take your 30 seconds.
Well, I'm just going to say a real positive comment. So I'm so impressed with all the speakers, for you. Everybody put this together, and grateful because I don't see a lot of guys on this. But
I tried. They wouldn't show up. So
well, I'm here. I'm
okay.
Super grateful for every one of these women, especially the women that are on here learning and wanting to provide these trends. And I'm just letting you know, I'm following y'all's trends. I'm grateful for y'all, and just letting you know to have a little faith.
Thank you, Victor.
If there's some of us out here. So
Thank
we
you
love
so
and appreciate y'all.
Thank you so much. And we appreciate you, and we appreciate everybody on this call. We've got about a minute left. I'm going to see if any of our trends experts have one last thought to share. Really, really fast. Anybody?
Balancing tradition and technology. I think it's going to be really interesting. Preserving culture and progressing through technology.
Nancy, I'll just mention, because Victor, and thank you for being on the call, we had a trend specifically for men in the report, which people can purchase, and it's called From Manning Up to Opening Up. A cultural shift is underway with the rise of social and emotional wellness offerings for men to help them connect with themselves and each other. So it's a great trend and a good write-up.
That is fantastic and an absolutely wonderful way to end. I'm going to ask everyone to unmute and give our trends experts the round of applause they deserve for their wonderful thinking. And thank you all for being on the call. You'll receive follow-ups, recordings, chat.
Bravo.
Everything.
Bravo.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you all.